That's right. I'm back to talk about some Bears football. Well, actually, hopefully not so much of that this year, and more bear down and the Bears and that type of stuff, right? As much as I know a lot of you live for it, at the end of the day, if I'm spending a bunch of time screaming out Bears football into this semi-functioning microphone, into that overpriced and underperforming webcam, then we know that this year hasn't went so well for the Bears, the monsters of the Midway. But anyways, we're coming up on football season. The first preseason game's already in the books. Yeah! And I'm a couple days late in making this video, but better late than never. Bottom line is the Bears gave DJ Moore the bag. A big bag. And I gotta say, when you look at how this all happened, getting DJ Moore as part of that trade with the Panthers before last year's draft, because the Panthers wanted to get up to that top pick to take a quarterback, and then David Tepper apparently overruled everybody else and says, no, I want the inferior talent in Bryce Young because David Tepper is a moron. Well, it doesn't matter. The Panthers paid the Bears a bounty, including DJ Moore. Just a brilliant get by Ryan Poles. And last season, DJ Moore did his part to pay off that confidence by the Bears, to bring him in the trade. He made it worthwhile. 96 receptions, over 1,300 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns receiving, another touchdown running. It was his 4th season in his career for DJ Moore where he went over 1,000 yards. And what's impressive about this in particular is that, it wasn't like Justin Fields was great last year by any stretch of the imagination, no matter how much the Fields cultists will try to tell you otherwise. He fucking stunk. And then he missed several games. And then you're going with an undrafted quarterback as your backup who's starting multiple games from a Division II school in Tyson Bagent. Like, DJ Moore still put up those big numbers. That's got to represent something, right? And now you've got a situation where the Bears went into this draft. They took Caleb Williams, number 1 overall. It's clear the offense is a big priority. It's a top priority. It must be the most important priority. And I don't care what anybody says. If you don't agree with that, you're just fucking wrong. That's just not how any of this works. A top priority, period. And the good thing is DJ Moore was fitting nicely into that plan because he's on the books for the next 2 years with a $16 million cap hit, which is interesting because with his production level, you could argue that he's certainly outplaying the contract that he's under, which he had signed back when he was with the Panthers. And here are the Bears. They've recently given big money deals to guys like Cole Kmet and Jalen Johnson and Montez Sweat. They're in a spot where they've got some guys they need to pay, and they know they're going to need to pay more guys with that cap space that they've had in this past offseason, the offseason before that, and frankly, when you talk about 2025, right now sitting about 70-ish million in cap space, right? Like, you got to go big. And especially with Caleb Williams and having him under a rookie scale contract potential if you pick up the 5th-year option and let that ride through 2028. Like, the cap hits for Caleb Williams the next 4 years are 7.1, 8.9, 10.7, and 12.5 million respectively. Yeah, this is the time you go all in and you splurge and you spend huge on the talent around your young quarterback. Period. Full stop. This is when you do it. You ask, when is your championship window? If you're the Chicago Bears, it's that 5-year stretch of Caleb Williams' rookie scale contract. You have to go all in so at some point in time you can actually say you have a championship-worthy team. And in order to do that, one of the things you're going to have to do is you're going to have to spend big money on big-name players. Now, it's fair to question, where does DJ Moore stack or slot amongst the top wide receivers in the game? He's not a top 5 guy. I'd argue he's not a top 10 guy, maybe more 11 to 15, 11 to 17 guy. But for the Bears, he's a solid, legitimate enough number 1 wide receiver. It's also fair to say the Bears just needed to go ahead and get this done. Because I know I'd even started tweeting about this over the past year or so that this is bound to eventually get to a spot where it might not be so cordial, might not be so nice, that a DJ Moore is going to say, wait a second, why the fuck am I playing on this old contract that I signed with Carolina a couple years earlier? I'm producing big here in Chicago. I want to get paid big, and the Bears have a bunch of salary cap space. They need to fucking do this, and if they don't, I'm going to hold out. Like, this is where this could have eventually headed. Not guaranteed, but it's certainly a possibility. So I think the Bears knew that, and they looked at, Ryan Poles in particular said, you got to build this around Caleb Williams. The top weapon on this team is DJ Moore. You've got your quarterback now on a rookie scale contract for the next 4 to 5 years. Go pay his number one wide receiver. And that's what they did. They gave him the bag, right? A 4-year, $110 million extension with $82 million guaranteed. That tacks on to his current contract that has 2 years remaining from all indications and sources. That locks him in through 2029. And you could say it could be risky to lock up a wide receiver through his age 32 season. That's fair. But let's be really honest here. The likelihood is that for one reason or another, DJ Moore wouldn't see the end of this deal anyways, right? Like, you think about this contract for all intents and purposes. You've got 2024 and 2025 that he plays out. And then you're probably looking at 26, 27, maybe not 28 before he would either be gone, or you're reworking a deal, or you're giving him a new big bag contract. Like, think of this mostly as really like a 2-year extension, maybe 3 at most. So it also gives Caleb Williams a top option to develop with in the formative years of his career. This is not the time to get cute. This is not the time to fuck around. This is not the time to be like a McCaskey-run organization, Bears football! You got a championship window, so don't pay any fucking buddy. That's what the Bears of the 80s did. Fucking douchebags. But this had to be done for the Bears. Ironically, though, I think it also needed to be done for DJ Moore. He deserved to get paid. I don't think anybody's really going to dispute that, especially when you look at the marketplace and other receivers that were getting paid. Now, yes, you could say he's passing up on potentially an even bigger payday in another year or two, which could be true, right? However, there are a certain number of risks associated, and his future payday could have been less. So it's better to get that guarantee and certainty now than roll the dice and risk rolling craps in a year or two. Because what if he starts to deal with injuries last year, but what happens if injuries start to be a thing? Now what does that put his future value at? What if his numbers drop in 2024 due to the other weapons on this offense? You would assume that the Bears are going to throw quite a bit with Caleb Williams, and unless something seriously goes wrong, he's going to easily eclipse 4,000 yards passing. If he doesn't, there are major problems there with the offense, with Caleb, or with something. The play caller, who knows? But when you look at this offense, they drafted Rome Odunze. You have Cole Kmet. Like, there are weapons in this passing game. So there is certainly a risk for a DJ Moore that what he did last year, even in the situation that he played in, is not going to be replicated this year. That could hurt his future value. That's very likely. Very likely. And what if Rome Odunze becomes Caleb's top target by 2025? Certainly a possibility, if not a likelihood. I think the reality is, as much as the Bears needed to get this deal done now, DJ Moore needed to get this deal done too. He got his big payday without the risk of injury knocking his value down, the risk of decreased utilization and targeting down. Like, the Bears needed to get this done for the sake of Caleb Williams, for the sake of this offense. Get this done because he needed to get that locked in long-term big-time money that he deserves. It's just a good deal all around, and I'm happy they got it done. That way we don't have to worry about it for another 4 to 5 fucking years. And if this comes back and bites the Bears in the ass, and in 2 years DJ Moore is not nearly as productive, then so be it. Like, that's the name of the game. Sometimes you got to take that risk. But this is a risk worth taking. DJ Moore has been a consistent and productive player at the NFL level. 4 seasons of 1,100 plus yards receiving. He had a career year in a shitty situation all around in terms of that Bears offense in 2023. If you point to guys that you say, I feel pretty confident that they're going to at least somewhat live up to this deal, I would feel good about saying DJ Moore has a greater likelihood of living up to his big deal than some other players.